Good morning, everybody. Just to introduce the company first. OBI Sports was formed in November 2023 by Charles Henderson, following a move away from previous roles, and I joined him in March 2024. Over that time, we've developed a large number of clients. Some of these clients have been full construction projects, some have been testing clients, some have been site overview. In the time that we've been formed, in 18 months, we've overseen 35 hybrid pitch projects. Again, varying roles from design just to design, oversight, etc. And over the period of our professional careers, we've overseen probably 50 plus hybrid installations. So today we're going to talk about the transition to hybrid, basically making hybrid more affordable in different situations. We're going to talk about the benefit of hybrid, the overview of pitch types, assessing each situation, because that can change the stadium and training grounds. And also we're going to talk about some case studies we've been through delivered with OBI. And just going back, the number one limiting factor to hybrid is cost. It's trying to get that. Everybody wants hybrid because of the benefits, but it's trying to get that into the budget that's available, especially when you're coming down away from stadiums. So the benefits of hybrid. So we've got the end user benefits. So we want consistent playing surfaces throughout the year. We want smooth surfaces. We want regular high levels of usage. All of those factors that contribute to the spectacle of the game. We don't want to be watching a game talking about the pitch. We want to be talking about a great game and what happened in that game, not the pitch. And also you've got the maintenance benefits. Obviously from the ground staff, there's a good reason why ground staff want hybrid. Ultimately we feel it helps them to give a better quality of turf. You know, nobody wants to spend days upon days divoting, so we find that hybrid limits that, or reduces that time. It helps faster establishment. There's more and more pressure to bring about constructions now with limited time frames, so that window is getting squeezed together. And infiltration rates is the number one factor, especially in UK. We have a lot of rain, so making sure that whatever the weather, the Saturday afternoon, whenever that game is played, that it can take place. So things to think about with the pitch construction. So we've got these into three different categories. Priority factors, so you've got commercial, what the demands of the stadium are for other factors, concerts, other usages, and the climate, just mentioned before, that's key in terms of rainfall, obviously shade in stadiums, and the project budget is a major factor, like I just said as well. And also take into account the existing profile of what there is already. Can you work with what's there already? Does it need fully replacing? And then what materials are available as well. The secondary factors, the time frame. Different time factors can influence what type of pitch you can propose to install. Last season, for example, in the summer, we reconstructed Hull City Stadium and we had to use a hybrid carpet turf because there was not the time to stitch and seed, because there was 6 weeks total and we went all the way down to the gravel layer with that, undersoil heating, etc. You also got to think about site restrictions, limitations. So what's involved there in terms of let's start again. Site restrictions and limitations. I'll move on to site-specific requirements. Every site is different, so you've got to take that into account. Another factor are the tertiary factors, logistics, what space is available to do the construction, and the commercial cash flow. These pitches can cost a lot of money, so are you able to split that off into different areas over time? So now we're just moving into the different types of pitch constructions. This is probably the conventional pitch. We started off probably 450mm profile, a 150 gravel, 200 root zone, or 200 lower root zone, should I say, 100 upper. We've now done some pitches where we brought that down to a 400 profile, basically by reducing the gravel layer overall. These pitches have lateral drainage in, no need for secondary drainage in there. Then there's the non-gravel carpet, deep profile. These pitches have been around a little while too, essentially removing the gravel carpet and have more intense drainage underneath, closer lateral drainage spacings, secondary drainage, in some cases you might even have a third layer of drainage. Then you've got your 200mm lower root zone, 100mm upper root zone. Then you've got the shallower profile, non-gravel profile. So this is where we've brought this down further, in basically reducing the amount of lower sand. This is where we've started to look at reducing the cost for the clubs, and it's had some good success with it. We've done one this year with down to 150mm profile, which we'll come on to later on. There's been quite a few done with 250mm profiles, which are a good 5 years old now, and they are performing well, and some of those are even in the northwest of England, which do get a lot of rainfall. So just going on to case studies. Charles and I have done a lot of these over the years, and more recently we've done some down at Bromley, Sutton United and St Helens. So it was about 2019, 2020, the FA wanted to improve the standard of Women's Super League pitches, undertook a large testing process, and I like to think that that's helped contribute to what's happened with the Lionesses. Obviously, we're in a great stadium here for about 5 weeks ago, and the pitch standard has improved in the WSL. It's gone from, out of the 12 clubs in the WSL, where 4 to 5 of them were playing on hybrid, now all 12 are playing on hybrid in one situation or another. Now, the women's game does struggle with budget. It's growing. There is a lot of interest, but getting the money into the game has proved difficult. So the FA were able to obtain some funding, but there was still a restricting budget in place. For a full gravel carpet, undersoil heated pitch in a stadium, you can be around, say, 1.3, 1.5 million pounds. So this budget wasn't in place, so we had to look at alternative approaches. Most of these, most of the teams play on pitches shared with other teams. A lot of them shared with Football League teams, National League teams, and more now are actually going into the main Premier League stadiums too. So these pitches are multi-use, and they can't just withstand multiple use pitches, teams playing on these pitches without compromising the standard. And just going on to the projects themselves, the one at Bromley, Bromley FC got promoted. This is Bromley FC men's team, got promoted to the Football League in 2024, and there's a rule where you can't play on artificial pitches, which their existing pitch was. So we oversaw a design and tender and project installation of a hybrid pitch into that stadium. And with that, the London City Lionesses were a team looking to progress. They were in the Women's Championship at the time, have subsequently been promoted to the WSL this last season. So that project required some foresight into bringing hybrid into a artificial profile and the things that went with that. Sutton United was a club that, similar to Bromley, but 2 to 3 years previously got promoted into the Football League, had an artificial pitch. They unfortunately went into it and put a cheaper profile in, shall we say, reused some material which wasn't very useful to the pitch drainage, and unfortunately after the third year the pitch failed. So we had to look at an option there to replace that pitch, and we went and assessed it and came up with a system where we removed the existing carpet, enhanced the drainage system, put some more material in and stitched. And then the third one we'll talk about was St Helens Rugby League. So Liverpool FC women had played at Tranmere Rovers ground for a few seasons on a hybrid pitch, but the club were keen to get back on Merseyside, so Tranmere had been over the water, not classed as Merseyside, so St Helens was seen as a good option. So the rugby league season generally runs from February through to late September, October, so there was a good period of the season when the St Liverpool women would have that stadium to themselves. That was an existing fibre sand pitch which had undergone some sinkages just due to the environment the stadium was built on, but that was all sorted out. So that pitch was installed with a 5-week window, going from a Friday night rugby league game. The strip out started on the Saturday morning. By the following Friday the pitch was seeded, stitching started, stitching finished on the Monday, and then there was a further, I think it was 25 days until day 28 after seeding, the first rugby league game then was played. So that was quite a quick turnaround and achieved, and that's done very well. The next case study, Chelsea Football Club. Chelsea's one of the leading clubs in the UK. They've got a vast training site. It goes on forever. Anybody who's ever been at Cobham, it really does just go on. But they've got the first team and academy match pitches are the first pitches which you come to. They are all hybrid. There's been no problem with those pitches, but there's been a desire to move or to improve player value through the club. They've got a very successful academy and they want to continue to attract the best players, so they needed better pitches for their upcoming stars to play on. Even Chelsea being Chelsea, they've still got a budget to work to, so we had to find an affordable option for them. So just skipping to the bottom section there, this year we installed 200mm sand carpet construction onto some existing pitches, which you can see in the picture there. So that's quite a shallow soil profile present with lateral drainage and 1 metre slip drains. And then we just put the 100mm of sand on and then 100mm of upper root zone, and then that's been stitched. And that's covering 3 pitches, so it's a very large area. And that completes 4 hybrid pitches and 2 fibre sand pitch installations in the last 18 months at Chelsea. Next one was Oxford United. This was the pitch that I mentioned earlier, with the 150mm profile. So the club have got the existing training site, just had poor quality pitches, drainage wasn't performing for them, and there was a desire to. This is what a club that wanted to match the stadium pitch being hybrid and bring hybrid to their training pitches. originally the scheme was for two and a bit pitches, full stitched hybrid, almost the full works going in there. The project got tendered, but the club said we can't afford that. Can you have another think? So eventually it got scaled down to the single pitch, and even at that level, just cutting the area, in more than half, still wasn't fitting their budget available. So we had to think again, and that's where we came up with the 150mm sand carpet profile using the existing drainage, which meant just cleaning out. The existing drainage was checked, it was installed to a reasonable standard, it just wanted a refresh, new gravel, and I think there's new secondary drainage put in there, and then we installed a carpet on top of that. And this was it's a useful place to use carpet because stitching, although there is the shallower stitching available, it was just felt in this situation that just to give the longevity, the 10-year plus lifespan, that we knew that the carpet would work, and also that aligned to what was already in their stadium, was a carpet system. Next one, Brentford Football Club. So Brentford have undergone a big upward trajectory over the last few years. They've done really well in the Premier League, etc. And quite famously, they did away with their academy a few years ago. But since they've progressed and done well, and perhaps touching on the edge of Europe, they had to bring back their academy, and so that then came to wanting to have a Cat 1 academy. Their training site, fortunately for them, only sort of half of the land had been developed for the existing first team site. If you've ever been to Jersey Road, that sort of, as you go in, on the right hand side was all the first team site, and on the left hand side there was just a large field which hadn't been touched. So they went for planning permission for new pitches, academy building, and it also includes an indoor pitch, full size outdoor, artificial, and additional training pitches. Because of the planning application, there was lots of back and forth, and there is no drainage outlet available on this site. It is to the north of the site itself is fields, normally horses grazing in there, and on the southern western sections it's all housing, so there was no outlet available. Fortunately, unlike a lot of London, there was a lot of sand gravel material underneath, so it gave quite good soak away potential. So we worked with a drainage engineer, and we came up with solutions to deliver the drainage, which essentially meant that we had soak away trenches installed with deep gravel. Well, we didn't use regular 2 to 6 mil gravel. This is MOT type 3 material used as a drainage attenuation, and then the pitch constructions went on top of that. But also, we didn't want to, again with budget, we didn't want to take any material off site, because taking material off site costs a lot of money, especially in London. So fortunately there was room around the site that we were able to create landscaping bunds, which also ticked a box for sustainability and landscape enhancement. But we also had to reuse a lot of the topsoil. So on each pitch there was, it varied on the design, but 300 to 400 millimetres of topsoil was put in place on top of the drainage layer before we put the pitch installation in. And on there, so there was, in phase 1, there was one full-size hybrid installed and a hybrid extension, both of which were Hero hybrid carpet. Next one is Ipswich Town. So Ipswich Town has been a project that we've carried out this year. It's still ongoing. We've been employed by the club to oversee the verification and sign off of the materials, the works, check the quality, and also do end of project pitch testing. Ipswich have, although they got relegated from the Premier League, they've put in a big investment into their facilities. 2 to 3 years ago they upgraded the Portman Road stadium pitch, and so they were very keen to bring hybrid through the rest of their club. And in actual fact, they've now got better pitches for their women's and academy teams for training than the first team have. So I think that is a project that Ben is looking at for next year. So this year they've done 6 areas of the training ground, probably 3 full-size pitches, of which this is one of them, and then there's quite a long, narrow goalkeeping area and 2 smaller pitches. And the work that we've been carrying out has been monitoring the materials, profile depths, infiltration rates, and the stitching quality. And we've got the stadium projects that we've carried out this year. Celtic, Crystal Palace and Sheffield United. All been very different, interesting projects. Celtic was a project that Charles had taken on, obviously up in Glasgow, very big stadium, very difficult to grow grass, and they had an old, I think about 5-year-old turf pitch, turf that was put in and stitched, and it was also always a constant barrier to the guys up there. It was always very difficult, especially when the Champions League fixtures took it, in the sort of November, December time when lighting really became required, training and just general matches, it all took its toll. So that one was carried out this year, and for all of these stadiums or all projects, getting the materials is getting a lot more difficult, or the right materials, or the materials that will lock together straight away. You've got very short time frames. Sheffield United, for example, although they got into the playoffs, they'd already locked in a concert at the bank holiday weekend at the end of May, so that meant that we had quite a short window for the works. I think we had a 3-week window for the works, and that only left 6 weeks for the growing and stitching. And stitching can obviously, it's very much required, but it also gives a lot of problems getting stability back. So what we have looked at from experience and from just generally having a little play around and talking to stitching providers is variable stitching patterns. Obviously traditionally it's been a 2 centimetre by 2 centimetre pattern. So what we did at Celtic and at Crystal Palace was we did a 2 centimetre by 1.5 centimetre pattern just to bring that in a bit closer. And a lot of that was to help the initial establishment period, but also the long-term playability. We found that from Stamford Bridge, which ended up getting double stitched a couple of years ago, that pitch has gone pretty much bomb-proof. Now you've got to be careful with double stitching that it's not too much, because it can go too hard, so you've got to manage it correctly. And what we did at Sheffield United was we tightened up the spacing of the stitching on some of the really high wear areas, so penalty areas, linesman's linesman runs, goalkeeper warm-up areas, just to give them a bit of extra help with when they're coming under pressure. But obviously what we don't want to cause there is well, we need consistency over the pitch. So what we offer is the OBI self-test, where we can map out the different factors, you know, clegg, traction, moisture and NDVI, and we can target maintenance where we need to, extra aeration, for example, to make sure that those pitches remain consistent. Yeah, so in summary, elite stadiums with commercial demand typically go for the conventional route. That's what we pretty much had to do with the pitch in the picture there at Selhurst Park. You can't take any chances really with those, you know, stadium pitches. Gravel carpet was already in place. We had to just adapt that a little bit and reinstall. But where different situations dictate a different approach, there are different solutions available. So the Oxford United, for example, the budget was very limited, so we had to find an approach for them to get hybrid in, and that is possible. So every project is different, different understandings, required expertise to find and agree a solution that works for everybody, and that's everybody from the groundsman at the end of the day, the end user, the player, the club paying for it, but also the contractor's got to be able to install it. There's no point designing something that can't be installed as well. And that's all, thank you very much. Is there any questions or